Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my ridiculous neighbor destroyed my house after I left my home country, thinking that I will never return. She stole my property and tried to sell everything I owned. I ended up suing her to teach her a lesson. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. I hit a point in my life when I needed a break from everything around me. It seemed like all the bad things from my life decided to happen in one go and left me just a mess. I lost my job, I lost my girlfriend, and I felt like I was just stuck. I got cousins in Germany and they suggested that I go live there for a couple of months and rejuvenate. I did just that and left to go and live in Germany for what ended up being 6 months. It's just what I needed, and I was even offered a job and had the choice to stay there. Something in me felt like I needed to come back home instead, and since I was feeling better, I did just that. I got on a plane and in a taxi to go to my house, and I found my house was gone. Not what I was expecting, and I had no clue what to do. Now is a good time to bring up the other thing I had left for 6 months. My neighbor. She was somebody that I was really glad to be away from and one of the only things I dreaded coming back to. She was a total Karen and seemed to have issues with everything, not good for my mental health in the slightest, and I would try and just ignore her the best I could. Hell, she would complain that I wasn't married or having kids, so I didn't even have business owning a house according to her. She basically said they are reserved for families and single people all have to live in apartments. I had the bad luck, to see her while I was just standing there like an idiot with my suitcase, looking at an empty property that should have my house standing here instead. Karen, you're back? Me, yeah, I can see a lot has changed in the last 6 months. You wouldn't happen to know what happened to my house, would you? Karen, well, I had just assumed you moved away and just left. Me, wait, did you have my house taken down? Karen, I figured you took my advice and got an apartment. Me, what the hell? The bank should not have sold it, I was still paying and everything. Karen, I mean, I just figured that it was foreclosed and such a good piece of land to just go to waste. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that Karen is a home developer. The way she was talking made it clear what she had done even if it wasn't going to spell it out for me. She had assumed I wasn't coming back and just took the property for herself. Basically, she got rid of my house so she could use the space for land development for one of her projects. Me, well, you were wrong and now I'm back. This is your problem since you took it upon yourself to decide to get rid of my home. Now I have nowhere to live. Karen, I'm sure you have friends and like I said, there are great apartments available. She was totally unbothered at the fact that she had basically stolen my home out from under me. Honestly, she was acting like it was a casual thing, as if she dropped a piece of garbage on my property or accidentally backed up onto my lawn. The fact is, I had no house now and she was acting like it was no big deal. I was freaking out and calling everybody I knew to try and find a place to stay. On top of that, I was clearly going to have to get a lawyer since she didn't have any intention of fixing things. I'm the type of person that even though I hate her, if she was to apologize and rebuild my house, I would not press charges. Which, by the way guys, is totally the wrong attitude if you ask me. But anyway, with her acting like this, I was not gonna rest though until I raised hell and it dragged her down to the depths. I found somewhere to stay on a monthly basis while I worked with a lawyer to try and get my home back. I also got a new job in the meantime because I needed money and fast in order to afford this lawsuit and paying for the monthly rent. The bad news was that almost all of my paperwork was in a safe in my home. It was gone with everything else, which was just the cherry on top of my crap sundae. So far nobody seems to have stolen my identity or anything, so my guess is they were destroyed and not stolen. The good news is that I had electronic copies that would be sufficient enough for court, plus emails showing receipts of me paying for the home while I was away. During the time we were preparing our case and waiting for the courts to have an availability, I noticed that Karen was busy getting my property ready to sell. She was putting the land on the market and ready to make a profit off of it. My lawyer was able to put an immediate halt on that sale since the land was part of an ongoing court case. I am so glad we found that because if she sold the land, it would make everything more complicated. Bringing in another person who felt they had claim while Karen could try and get away saying she wasn't claiming to ever own the property. Karen is named this way for a reason and you can be sure her entitlement didn't get checked at the door when she got to court. In her mind, she totally had the right to just assume ownership of my property while I was out of the country. Let me just make one thing clear here because it might work differently in other countries. Even if I did abandon my property and the bank foreclosed on it from lack of payment, that doesn't make it just up for grabs. It means the bank would repossess the property and then put it on the market to get the money they are owed. This meant that her excuse of thinking the property got foreclosed on held zero merit in court. She had no case, and it was clear within the first 5 minutes what the verdict was gonna be. The land was clearly mine, and she had destroyed my property and attempted to steal and then sell it. She had to pay to have my entire home rebuilt, and while that would be a satisfying ending, it didn't stop there. Because of this lawsuit, she got investigated, and it was found that I was not the only property she had done this to. At least half a dozen properties that she had profited on were found to be not legally hers. She found people that had went away for long periods of time, moved into nursing homes, and even just died. She would swoop in and claim ownership with nobody being the wiser before selling the property. This was major fraud and theft, and she was not getting off with just a warning or a fine. We are talking a few $1,000,000, and for that amount of fraud, she was guaranteed jail time. You can only use your imagination to think how pissed Karen was hearing that she was going to jail and nobody was listening to her anymore. I don't know if anybody else has come home from a long trip to a weirder experience than I have. I can say that if I randomly go to Germany for 6 months again, I should hire somebody to keep an eye on the house. To make a long story short, this held spawn of a Karen ended up behind bars for so long that she will probably not remember what daylight looks like when she comes out again. Additionally, she had to pay fines in excess of $1.2 million for all the crimes she committed, which obviously bankrupted her as well. Her life was absolutely ruined, and I could not be any happier. And here, ripe stars, usually I don't really find joy in the misery of others, but in this case I can definitely understand OP. The entitlement that this Karen has shown is just off the charts, and she absolutely got what she deserved. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel, because that would help me tremendously. And the next one is another revenge story. I work at a hospital as a lab technician. Our hospital site is near the city center and quite old, so there's no real parking lots and not many parking spaces available between students, patients and the hospital. It is now 8 AM, and since I work in a small team, only 4 people, and the evening shift is also on call for any emergency, we have one reserved parking spot. There's a sign saying it's only for on-call lab technicians from our department, and there's a chain with a padlock in front of it. It's located between a fence and another building's wall right next to our lab. There's another team in the lab, and we sometimes let them use the parking spot when we have others available or when we come using public transportation, but otherwise we don't share it. So onto the story. A few weeks ago I started doing the evening shifts, usually from 10 AM to 7 PM, but it can last much longer. I was also on call, so I took my car to the lab. I arrived one morning near 9:45, went to the reserved parking spot, but the chain was down and the spot was taken. At first I thought it was someone from the other team, but I didn't agree to share the spot with anyone, and I didn't recognize the car. So I decided to just park in front of it horizontally so that my car wouldn't be on the road. That way, the other car was stuck between the wall, the fence and my car. At first I was thinking I would move it as soon as I found the colleague, and he agreed to let me get my spot. But it turns out the car did not belong to anyone from the lab. One tech had witnessed by the window a lady parking in the spot around 9:40. When he opened the window to tell her not to park there, she just said, "I'm in a hurry, I won't be long," and left walking fast. I checked if there was a phone number left under the windshield that I could call, but nothing, so we decided, you know what, my car is fine where it is, it's not on the road, I will leave enough sidewalk for pedestrians to be safe, and it's only blocking her. I don't have time to go find another parking spot at this hour, which would probably be at the end of the hospital site. Plus, I have a sticker on my car saying it can park at some places in the hospital for emergencies. And the day went on. I had almost forgotten about it until 4 PM when someone called the secretary. The lab's phone number was on my sticker. It was a lady wondering why there was a car parked in front of her. Turns out she was also a hospital worker from another department who had arrived late to work and couldn't find a place to park, so she took the chains down and parked there. No idea how she got rid of the padlock, but it was old and weathered, so it might just have broken. She had just finished, it won't belong my ass, and now she wanted to leave but couldn't. First the secretary, a nice woman but not known for her calm temper, berated her by the phone. Then she connected the lady to our phone, where a colleague did pretty much the same. Next, another colleague went out to check on my car, and according to said colleague, she looked relieved as she thought he was gonna move my car. He just said it was illegal for her to park there and now she had to wait for me or we would call to have her towed. Meanwhile, I was in the middle of a complex procedure that required to be in a white room, sterilized room with controlled atmosphere, sterilized blues, so I couldn't just leave what I was doing like that. So she waited and she called twice more to complain that she needed to leave. And twice she got berated by my colleagues until one of them told to stop or they would involve the hospital security and actually get her towed. In the end, I got out of the white room at 5:30 p.m. My colleagues and I thought it was enough, so I changed myself as slowly as possible, took the time to get everything in order and let everyone know in the building that I was going out for 5 minutes and then finally got out. She was visibly pissed as F because it was almost 5:45 p.m, but the threat to get her car towed might have stuck because she didn't say anything except a passive-aggressive "thank you." By the time she could get out, it was almost 5:50 p.m, so she waited a little less than 2 hours. Could have been worse since my shift ended around 7:30 that evening. So far, no one else has parked on the spot except us. And the next one is a story from r/am I the jerk, and it is very interesting. So it starts like this. My family is Asian and my husband's side is white. My husband and I got married and are treating his side of the family and my side to a 1-week all-expense-paid vacation to Bora Bora as a pre-family honeymoon before going off on our real one. And by the way, guys, I've never heard of a pre-family honeymoon, aka a honeymoon that you go on with the family. Let me know if you have ever heard of that. Anyway, we were able to rent out half a side of the bungalows and only one villa was in that section. My husband and I took the villa. The bungalows are a 1,000 square feet, 1 bedroom, option of 1 king bed or 2 queens, 1 bathroom and outdoor space type of deal. We made sure everyone was accommodated for and everyone had a comfortable living situation. Our villa is a 4,000 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom including sauna, living room, a grand outdoor space and with an outdoor bathtub, pool and slide to get in the ocean. We have not even made it a whole 24 hours here yet and a fight has already broken out. During dinner, my cousin mentioned wanting to come over and use our slide. My grandparents asked what we were talking about and asked to see pictures of our room. Well, they saw my villa and demanded that we trade rooms with them, as no elders should mate to slave and live as peasants while their grandchildren get a nicer room. This is Bora Bora we are talking about. No one is living as a peasant here. There was only one villa available in our section. Had I given it to my grandparents, I think it would have been offensive to my husband's grandparents. If there was 3, we would have given it to both grandparents and 1 for ourselves. But unfortunately, there wasn't. I mentioned this and they still demanded the villa. I obviously objected and said I felt as though my husband and I should have had that room as this is a vacation with family to celebrate our marriage, plus we kind of like paid for this entire trip. Wouldn't one just sit back and be grateful that they are on a free vacation instead of complaining? My grandparents freaked out, saying I'm holding money above their head and that I'm being disrespectful and not following their orders. They stormed off after threatening to take the first flight out tomorrow morning and leaving. I don't know what to do. My side of the family is telling me to just give them the room to be respectful and bring peace to the family, while my husband's side thinks my grandparents are crazy and I agree. They are so ridiculous. All I wanted was both sides of the family to get together and get to know each other, and now it's falling apart. I don't think I'm the a-hole at all here, but I've been up all night thinking whether I should just squash it and invite my grandparents to stay in my villa in order for them to not leave. But another part of me just wants to tell them to go F themselves for making my honeymoon about themselves, just like they usually do with everything else. So Reddit, what do I do? Would I be the a-hole if I denied giving up my villa? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this. Honestly, in my opinion, it is just outrageous how entitled these grandparents are. However, in my opinion, OP should pay for one more thing. He should get the quickest flight and the best taxi to bring them to the airport and get them out of there as quick as possible. That is a worthwhile investment. Anyway, people on Reddit said, not the a-hole, they are getting a free vacation and a nice one at that. If they're gonna throw a temper tantrum about not getting the nicest room, that's on them. Comment 2, not the a-hole, you're the honeymooners and you're paying for it, crying out loud. Let them fly out if they want, because if you don't stand up to them now, your life is gonna be ultimatums with them. Assert your authority now, and if they cannot deal with it, then fine. Caving to them is not worth your dignity in the long run. And now, fortunately guys, we have an update to the story from OP. So, even though I really wanted to be petty and tell them to F off, I decided it would be better to kill them with kindness so they have little to work with if they decide to spin it around that I was disrespectful. During breakfast, my grandparents refused to show up if I was there. Everyone tried calling them, but nope, we're not coming because disrespectful granddaughter is there. After a lot of persuading and even having to send our baby cousin to their room to soften them up, they finally decided to come. I made the first conversation by asking if they looked at any flights to leave yet and they could forward the pay stub to my cell. They said they hadn't looked yet and that should be my job if I was kicking them out. I made sure they knew that I was not kicking them out, but understood if they wanted to leave and offered to send some staff to their room to pack up their belongings so they could have a little more time to explore or get their complimentary in-room massage that comes with all the bungalows. They kind of stopped eating and looked at each other in shock. Every time they threatened to not go anywhere, my family has always babied them and begged them not to leave and offer money or extravagant gifts for them to stay. Well, I'm not gonna do that. I'll pay for their flight back home, but I've already done enough accommodating on my honeymoon vacation. So there you have it, my grandparents were not even planning to go home, they tried scaring me into begging them to stay. I called their bluff. After breakfast, I found a flight leaving around 5 p.m. and walked to the main desk to ask them to cancel reservations for that room for the rest of the trip and to send staff to help pack. They also didn't get their complimentary massage because the resort only offers that on 4-night stays or longer. Staff came to help pack and they left half an hour ago. I'm currently in my villa de-stressing before dinner and some uncles came in who were married into family and confided in me that they were sick and tired of the entitlement my grandparents have had since day one and they were glad that someone born into the family decided to speak up. My cousins came over and honestly couldn't care less that my grandparents are gone. In their words, they kill the vibe. So everyone is happy right now and is using my slide before cleaning up for dinner. I'm happy that I was able to stand up to my grandparents without being blatantly disrespectful. I have an overflow of messages and comments that I can't get back to, however the main question is what my profession is. Well, let's just say I didn't go the usual Asian route, I actually dropped out my last year of college and started a fashion line that took a couple of years to take off but surprisingly skyrocketed a few years ago. My dad is also an entrepreneur, I looked up to him and I'm so glad I had him as an inspiration who paved the way. Don't give up on your dreams. And just to add, please always deal with entitled people the way OP dealt with her grandparents. That was absolutely brilliant. Props to OP. The next one is titled Rude Customer Revenge. So, I work in a big clothing store. Since this is the last week before Christmas and our store is pretty big, I expected to have more people on a shift to cover up everything. But I was wrong. The amount of customers is double compared to other normal weeks, so we are pretty understaffed. Yesterday I was working at the changing rooms. My job was to keep them clean, make sure that people are respecting the pandemic guidance and putting back the clothes left by the customers. There were many customers, a huge line and a lot of frustrated people. But I was doing quite a good job. As I was minding my business, a lady shouts to me from the last changing room. "You there, bring me an S for this skirt." I went there and she told me that she has the perfect Christmas outfit in mind, but she needs an S for the skirt she was trying on. I told her that I will bring it, but she will need to be patient since I have a lot of work to do. 5 minutes later, as I was ready to go and bring that skirt, the customer once again shouts, "Where's the skirt?" I once again go there and I nicely told her that I was about to go and bring it. She says, "Forget it, I will bring it myself. Looks nobody does any work in this store." I nicely explained that my job is not to bring clothes to customers, but to take clothes from the changing room and put them back, but I wanted to be nice and do her a favor by bringing that skirt. She said something about me being useless and goes back to change. At that point I was really annoyed with her entitlement, so I went and took the only S left from that skirt in the entire store and I booked it for myself. The store allows employees to do that during work hours, so it was not a problem. As I went back to the changing rooms, I saw that lady hysterically searching for an S. I will put the skirt back right after Christmas. And indeed, ripe stars, I gotta say, I don't envy anyone working in customer service for Christmas. Seriously, during the Christmas rush people are even more rude than usual, so it has to be an absolute nightmare to have a job like that during that time. And the next one is titled Christmas Revenge. This happened a few years ago, but now that I am no longer with the company, I don't care about sharing. I was working retail and was the most senior sales associate and had been working at this store for over 8 years at that point. It was the holidays and obviously the store was insane. I had put in to not work Christmas Eve as I had closed 2 years in a row and had bent over backwards that season for them, not to mention the whole seniority subject. I get my schedule and I am working until 9 PM on the 24th. They did it because I could count the tilts, thereby making their night easier. Normally I would have just bitten the bullet and worked because confrontation makes me anxious, but this year it was different. My aunt had terminal cancer and would not live to see the next Christmas. My managers were well aware of this and scheduled me anyway. This is where the revenge comes in. Now, I knew I could not call in sick without repercussions, so I planned this out way in advance. I have screwed up joints that dislocate very easily. My ankle is the worst due to past injuries. So, a few days before Christmas, I pop my ankle in and out a few times. Don't recommend, my ankle is already messed up, so no harm, no foul, and I was in no physical pain and I knew it would not cause any real damage. This obviously makes it really swollen. That afternoon I went to a walk-in ortho clinic and they said I could not work the next 2 weeks at least. I hobbled my way into work with my boot on and a doctor's note in my hand. I told my manager I tripped down the stairs and would let her know when I would be back to work. I collected all my sick time and they were down their most senior associate, who they relied on for basically everything for 2 weeks during Christmas. This sounds a little extreme, but it was the best decision I have ever made. It was a lovely Christmas. I lost my grandma that April and my aunt the following June. The regret I would have had if I had missed the last Christmas with 2 of the best people in my life for a store who did not give a crap about me would have been unbearable. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.